My name is Juliet Whitfield. I'm 28 years old. For the past 18 months, I've been living with my boyfriend Ethan, who's 26. We've been together for 3 years in total. Until last Tuesday. I thought I knew where we were headed. Marriage, a shared future, maybe even kids one day. But everything changed that night. We were sitting in the living room. The TV was on, but muted like he'd silenced the world just so I'd hear him. His hands fidgeted with the hem of his sweatshirt, a nervous tic I'd seen 1,000 times. My stomach already knew something bad was coming before his mouth opened. "Juliet," he said softly, not quite meeting my eyes. "I like you, but I'm not in love with you." My pulse stopped. For a second, the room tilted like gravity had shifted. I forced a smile even as my chest tightened. "Thanks for the clarification," I managed, my voice steady, though every word tasted like iron. His shoulders relaxed in relief. That relief burned. He explained himself like this was some noble act of honesty. He said he cared about me deeply, loved my company, loved living together. But the spark, that romantic love, wasn't there, maybe never had been. "Don't get me wrong," he added quickly, panic flashing across his face as though I might leave right then. "I don't want us to break up. I love what we have. I just wanted to be honest." I nodded, trying to appear calm. Inside, my thoughts spiraled. "So, you want the home we built, the dinners I cook, the comfort of my arms, the warmth of our shared bed, but none of the love that makes those things real." "Okay," I said simply. No tears, no raised voice, just one word. His face brightened like he'd passed some test. He even hugged me before settling on the couch to watch his show, relieved to have confessed. I didn't join him. I excused myself, went to our bedroom, and stared at the ceiling for hours. Sleep refused to come. His words replayed on a loop, each time sharper. He likes me, but he's not in love with me. He wants everything to stay the same, but without love tethering us together. The cruelest part, he thought honesty was enough to excuse it. By morning, my decision was made. If Ethan wanted to treat me like a roommate he liked, then that's exactly what I'd become. When I woke, I didn't kiss him good morning. I didn't text him at work like I usually did. When he asked what I wanted for dinner, I replied, "I'll grab something on the way home." "Thanks." Not cold, just neutral. That day, I canceled the standing flower order I'd been keeping for him. 12 a week for 2 years. Flowers he sometimes noticed, sometimes didn't. Why buy flowers for a roommate? That evening, he'd made dinner anyway. We ate, chatting about work like colleagues. When he tried to cuddle me on the couch, I gave him a polite side hug and moved to the armchair. His eyes flickered with confusion, but he said nothing. By Thursday, I deep cleaned the apartment and reorganized everything. My toiletries moved into the hall bathroom. The guest room, his so-called office, was suddenly mine. My bed, my desk, my space. When he came home, I told him matter-of-factly. I thought we should have our own spaces since we're basically roommates who like each other. His face twitched, eyes widening. "Roommates?" "Well, yeah," I said evenly. "You like me. I like you. We share living space. That's what roommates do." He stumbled, clearly flustered. "We're still together, Juliet. We're still dating." I tilted my head, genuinely curious. "How does that work if you're not in love with me?" He stammered something about couples who stay together without being in love, about relationships evolving. "That sounds like friendship with benefits," I replied coolly. "And I'm not interested in that arrangement." He fell silent, but I could see the panic beginning to bloom in his eyes, like he realized the words he'd spoken so carelessly were coming back to cage him in. Friday, things escalated. He came home carrying takeout from my favorite Thai place, the expensive one we only go to on anniversaries. He spread out the food, lit candles like he was staging a date night. Thought we could have a nice evening together, he offered, hope in his eyes. I smiled, thanked him, ate my portion. Then I split the bill with him on Venmo before leaving for the gym. While I ran on the treadmill, my phone buzzed with message after message, 15 in total. Why are you being like this? We need to talk. Please come home so we can work this out. I replied with one sentence. I thought you'd be happy. You were honest about your feelings and I'm respecting them. When I returned, he was waiting in the living room, eyes red-rimmed with frustration. You're being petty, he accused, childish. I stayed calm. I'm just matching your energy. You wanted a friend. You've got one. A good one. I'll split bills, do chores, be pleasant company. But the girlfriend experience, the romance, the dates, the emotional labor, that's for someone who's actually in love with me. That night, he slept in our room. I slept in mine. By Saturday morning, the apartment was quiet, except for the sound of him making French toast, his special occasion dish. He placed 2 plates on the table, voice tight with desperation. Can we please just go back to normal? He asked. I lifted my fork, steady and unyielding. This is normal for roommates who like each other. The look on his face, I'll never forget it. Like he was suddenly realizing the trap he'd built for himself. He accused me of punishing him for being honest. I told him I wasn't punishing anyone. I was just being honest, too. Honest about what I'm willing to give to someone who only likes me. It had been 4 days and already the cracks were showing. What he didn't realize was that this was only the beginning. By Monday, it was clear Ethan hadn't expected me to take his words literally. He thought, I'm not in love with you was some abstract truth that would float harmlessly in the air. But I'd pulled it down, sharpened it, and used it to redraw the boundaries of our life. That morning, I left for work without the usual ritual. No sleep well babe text, no good morning kiss. When his message came in around noon, lunch later, I stared at it before replying, already ate, thanks. Polite, distant, exactly what you'd say to a coworker or a neighbor. Not a partner. At first, he seemed confused, then restless. That evening, he'd made dinner again. He was trying hard, overcompensating. Garlic butter chicken, roasted vegetables, even chilled white wine. I sat at the table, thanked him warmly, and ate my portion. But when he leaned across the table to brush my hand, I pulled mine away as though it were instinct. His face fell. Juliet, he said, his voice searching. Why are you acting like this? I smiled. Like, what? I'm just matching the energy you gave me. I stood, rinsed my plate, and carried it to the dishwasher. He watched in silence, the weight of his own honesty pressing down. By Wednesday, the apartment no longer looked the same. I'd stripped away every trace of us, my shampoo bottles lined neatly in the hall bathroom, my pillow missing from our bed. The guest room had transformed into my office/bedroom, desk lamp glowing late at night while I typed notes into my journal. It felt symbolic, a separation without leaving. Ethan noticed immediately. Why'd you move your stuff? He asked, lingering at the doorway, his tone defensive. I didn't even look up from my laptop. I thought it made sense. We're roommates who like each other, remember? Roommates usually have their own rooms. His jaw tightened. You're twisting my words. I closed the laptop slowly, stood, and walked toward him. No, I said quietly. I'm honoring them. You told me you weren't in love with me. I believed you. The silence stretched between us like barbed wire. He tried to smile, but it looked more like a grimace. Thursday evening he returned home holding a bag from the upscale bakery I adored, croissants still warm, glazed tarts I'd once called my guilty pleasure. He set them on the table with a forced brightness. Thought you'd like these. I thanked him, tore a croissant in half and passed him one piece before reaching for my phone. I Venmo'd him my half of the total, adding the note split between roommates. The look on his face was priceless, disbelief first then a flicker of fear. Seriously? He asked. Seriously, I answered, chewing calmly. We split things evenly now. Fair is fair. Later that night, as I folded laundry, he lingered nearby, shifting from foot to foot. Finally, he blurted, "You're being ridiculous. We're still together, Juliet. Stop acting like I'm just some guy you share rent with." I folded a towel, laid it neatly on the pile. "Are you in love with me, Ethan?" I asked without looking at him. He froze. His silence was louder than any answer. I looked up, finally, met his eyes, then stopped asking me to pretend. His mouth opened, but no sound came. He turned and left the room, the door slamming harder than he meant. By Friday, he'd grown frantic. I came home to find the dining table covered in takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. Green curry, pad Thai, mango sticky rice. The same spread he used to order for anniversaries. Candles flickered, music played softly from his phone. He looked up at me, hopeful, like a man trying to rewind time. "Let's have a nice night together," he said gently. I sat, ate my portion, and thanked him. Then I opened my phone, split the bill on Venmo again, and excused myself to go to the gym. The treadmill buzzed beneath my feet as my phone lit up again and again. 15 messages in 20 minutes. "Why are you doing this? We need to talk. Please come home, Juliet. We can fix this." I answered only once. "I thought you'd be happy. You were honest about your feelings. I'm respecting them." When I returned, he was pacing the living room, hands tugging at his hair. "You're being cruel," he snapped as I walked past. I paused, turned. "No, Ethan. I'm being consistent. You wanted a friend. You have one. I'm friendly, respectful, clean, and quiet. What I won't be is a girlfriend to someone who doesn't love me." His face crumpled in frustration, but I held his gaze without flinching. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. And for the first time, I realized just how powerful clarity could be. Monday morning began with something I hadn't expected. Ethan reaching for me in bed, his hand brushed my hip, his lips hovering by my shoulder. "Juliet," he whispered, trying to sound tender, the way he used to when we were new. I froze. The memory of his confession slashed through me. "Not in love with you. Maybe never was." I pulled away slowly. "No." His eyes snapped open, confused. "What? Why not?" I sat up, tugging the sheet around me like armor. "Because I don't sleep with people who don't love me." He laughed nervously like I was joking. But when my expression didn't change, the laughter died. "People have casual sex all the time," he argued, voice rising. "Sure," I said evenly. "But not me, not with you. Not after what you said." His face darkened. "We've been doing this for 3 years, Juliet." "And for 3 years," I countered. "I thought we were in love. That changes everything." The silence was thick, suffocating. He rolled away from me, muttering under his breath. But I heard it anyway. "You're punishing me." By Tuesday, the financial crack surfaced. For months, no, years, I'd cover dinners, concerts, weekend getaways, all on my card. Ethan would promise to pay me back later. Later never came. I let it slide because I loved him. But roommates don't run tabs with each other. So, I opened Venmo and sent him an itemized request. 3 months' worth of shared expenses. Total $1,847. His call came instantly. "Are you serious?" "Completely," I said calmly. "No rush. Just settle by the end of the month." The sputtering on the other end was almost comical. "I thought those were gifts." "That's what boyfriends do," I reminded him. "But you're not my boyfriend anymore." You're my roommate and roommates split costs. Click. He hung up without another word. Wednesday night, his best friend Aaron came over. A setup, I realized immediately. Ethan had called in backup. We ordered dinner. Dutch treat naturally. Halfway through the meal, Aaron leaned forward, eyes sharp. You're being cold, Juliet. He was just being honest about his feelings. Relationships evolve. I set down my fork, leveled my gaze at him. Would you date someone who told you outright they weren't in love with you? Aaron faltered. Would you still buy flowers, plan dates, pour your energy into them while knowing they didn't feel the same? The silence at the table was brutal. Aaron shifted, suddenly fascinated by his plate. Ethan kicked him under the table, but it wasn't subtle. I smiled thinly and finished my meal. The conversation never recovered. Thursday brought the next collapse. Ethan's car broke down. Major repairs, over $2,200. For the past 2 years, I'd quietly helped cover emergencies like this. That's what partners do. But I wasn't his partner anymore. He texted, "Babe, can you spot me? Promise I'll pay you back." I stared at the word babe. It felt like a dead leaf drifting in from another season. I replied, "Sorry, that's a lot. Maybe ask your parents or Aaron or work out a payment plan with the mechanic." His response was instant. "I don't have the credit for a plan. You've always helped me with this stuff." I used to help my boyfriend. And I typed back, "Roommates don't cover each other's major expenses." He didn't reply. The next morning, I watched from the window as he called an Uber. 47 each way to his office. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. That weekend, the house felt heavier than ever. He hovered constantly, cooking, cleaning, offering drinks, forcing conversation. Finally, late Saturday night, he broke. Tears welled in his eyes as he leaned against the doorframe of my new room. "I didn't mean it like that, Juliet. When I said I wasn't in love with you, I was just confused, maybe depressed. I do love you. I'm in love with you." I looked up from my notebook, unimpressed. "So, were you lying then, or are you lying now?" The question cut him in two. His tears stopped instantly, replaced by anger. "You're manipulating me." I reached for the notebook on my desk, flipped to a page dated 2 weeks earlier. I'd written everything he'd said the night of his confession, word for word. I read them aloud. "You told me, I like you, but I'm not in love with you. I never was. I want nothing to change." His mouth opened, but I wasn't finished. I held up my phone and showed him the message he'd sent his sister that night. "Finally told Juliet I'm not in love with her. Feels good to be honest." Silence, he turned pale. "You weren't being honest," I whispered, leaning back in my chair. "You were playing with me, and now you're drowning in your own words." His eyes blazed, but he said nothing. He just left, the slam of the door echoing down the hall. The truth was settling into his bones. And though he'd never admit it out loud, I could see it written in his eyes every time he looked at me. For the first time in our relationship, he was losing control. Sunday morning began deceptively quiet. The kind of silence where you think things might settle, but underneath something's brewing. When I stepped into the living room, Ethan was sitting on the couch with his phone in hand, staring at me like a man who'd rehearsed a speech all night. "You're being cruel," he said finally. His voice was trembling but laced with accusation. "You're punishing me for being honest." I crossed my arms. "No, I'm treating you exactly how you told me to. You said you weren't in love with me, so I adjusted." He shook his head violently, eyes flashing. "That's not what I meant." But I was ready. I opened the small journal I'd been keeping since his confession, flipping to the page with his words written out, neat and precise. "You said, I like you, but I'm not in love with you. I never was. I want nothing to change." His jaw tightened. I held up my phone next, scrolling to the message he'd sent his sister that night. Finally told Juliet I'm not in love with her. Feels good to be honest. The color drained from his face. He had no defense, only silence. Later that afternoon, he tried his nuclear option. I came home from the grocery store and froze in the doorway. Sitting on the couch were his parents, faces tight, hands folded in their laps. Ethan sat between them, eyes glassy with manufactured tears. My stomach sank, so this is where we are now. Juliet, his mother began gently. Ethan tells us you've been withdrawing, that you're shutting him out after he opened up. We're worried about you both. Ethan dabbed his eyes with a tissue. The perfect victim. I set the grocery bag on the counter, then calmly took a seat across from them. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. Let me explain, I said. 2 weeks ago, Ethan told me he likes me, but isn't in love with me. That he never was. I accepted that, and I've been treating him accordingly. As a roommate who likes me, that's all. His father's brow furrowed. He turned to Ethan. Is that true? Ethan swallowed hard. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. You told her you don't love her, his father cut in sharply. And now you're upset she won't act like she does. Even his mother, usually gentle, looked unsettled. Sweetheart, what did you expect? The silence that followed was brutal. Ethan shifted, his mask slipping as his parents' disappointment closed in. I sat still, calm and unflinching. For the first time, the power was mine. The days that followed were chaos. Ethan alternated between desperation and rage. One night, he cooked dinner, set the table with candles, even poured my favorite wine. I thanked him politely and Venmo'd half the grocery bill. The next morning, he stormed through the apartment, slamming doors, shouting about how cold and heartless I was. I recorded every word, just in case. By midweek, he tried bargaining. Maybe we can go to couples therapy. Start fresh. I'll do better. I'll figure out my feelings. I stared at him. I don't need therapy to know I deserve someone who's in love with me. His eyes filled with anger again. But beneath it, there was something else. Fear. He was realizing he had no leverage left. Then came the smear campaign. Friday morning, I woke to messages from mutual friends, confused and concerned. Ethan had posted on social media claiming I'd been financially controlling throughout our relationship. Screenshots of Venmo requests taken out of context, painting me as a nickel-and-dimer. At first, my chest burned with rage. But then I breathed, steadying myself. This was his last card. Manipulation. Instead of lashing back online, I opened a group chat with the friends who'd reached out. I shared everything. The original text, the screenshots showing I'd covered 75 of our expenses for years, the recordings of his outbursts. One by one, the responses rolled in. Silence at first, then shock, then understanding. The final blow came from our mutual friend Derek. So, basically, Ethan friend-zoned you, but still wanted the boyfriend benefits package. That's wild. By evening, Ethan's post had vanished, deleted without a word. That night, I sat alone in my office room, the glow of my desk lamp illuminating the pages of my journal. I wrote one sentence, my hand steady, my heart strangely calm. For the first time in years, I'm not afraid of losing him. I'm relieved by the thought because somewhere in the firestorm of accusations, defenses, and desperate attempts, I'd stopped seeing him as my partner. I saw him for what he really was, a man terrified of living with the consequences of his own honesty. And I was no longer willing to shield him from that truth. By Saturday morning, the smear campaign had fizzled. Ethan deleted his post, but the damage wasn't to me. It was to him. Mutual friends stopped reaching out. A few even apologized privately, embarrassed they'd believed him at first. And Ethan, he could feel the walls closing in. That day, he tried a new tactic. When I came home from errands, the apartment smelled like rosemary and garlic. He'd made steak, perfectly seared, medium rare, with roasted potatoes on the side. He'd even bought my favorite craft beer, the one I always said was too expensive. He greeted me with a forced brightness, apron still on. Surprise! Thought we could have a nice night in. I thanked him, sat down, and ate. Then I quietly reached for my phone and Venmo'd him my half. The smile on his face cracked just a little. Sunday was worse. He didn't bother with charm. He went straight to anger. "You've humiliated me," he spat, pacing the living room like a caged animal in front of my parents, in front of my friends. "You're a sociopath, Juliet." Cold, manipulative. I sat in the armchair, legs crossed, recording the entire thing on my phone from my lap. My voice never rose. "All I've done is take you at your word, Ethan. The rest, that's you unraveling." He stopped mid-rant, chest heaving, eyes burning. For a moment, I thought he might throw something, but then he stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door instead. By Monday, the pendulum swung again. He emerged quiet, almost meek, his voice soft as he stood in my doorway. "Maybe we could try again. Go to therapy. I'll figure myself out. We'll start fresh. Please, Juliet." I closed my laptop slowly, looked him dead in the eyes. "No, I don't need therapy to know what I deserve. I deserve someone who loves me without conditions, without tests." His lips trembled, but I didn't waver. He turned away without a word. Tuesday brought silence. Ethan barely left his room. No clattering pans, no fake smiles, no desperate attempts at charm, just silence thick enough to smother. By Wednesday, Chloe, his closest friend, showed up. She gave me a look of pure disdain as she set down her bag. Ethan had clearly spun her a story. "Juliet," she said, arms folded. "Don't you think you're being a little harsh?" He was just being honest. Relationships change. I smiled faintly, poured her a cup of coffee, and asked, "Chloe, would you want your boyfriend to tell you he's not in love with you and then still expect you to act like everything's the same?" Her lips parted, but no answer came. I leaned in, voice quiet, but sharp. "Would you keep cooking for him, covering bills, loving him with everything you have, knowing he didn't love you back?" The silence stretched. Chloe's eyes flicked toward Ethan, who was glaring at me from the couch. She grabbed her coffee, muttered something about needing to go, and left. Ethan's face was pure fury. But behind it, I saw something else. The sting of abandonment. He'd thought Chloe would rescue him. She hadn't. Thursday night, the storm hit. I woke at midnight to buzzing on my phone. Dozens of notifications, texts from mutual friends, screenshots, disbelief. Ethan had gone back to social media. This time, his lies were worse. He claimed I'd isolated him, manipulated him, controlled him financially. He even posted cropped screenshots of Venmo requests, painting me as some penny-pinching tyrant. For a moment, panic clawed at my chest. What if they believed him again? But then I remembered I had receipts. I created a group chat with everyone who'd reached out, dropped the full screenshots, every expense I'd covered for 2 years, every message where Ethan admitted he hadn't paid me back, every word of his confession. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, one by one, replies appeared. "Wow, that's not what he told us." Unreal. And then Derek, blunt as ever. "So, he basically friend-zoned you and still wanted the girlfriend benefits package." That's insane. By the next evening, Ethan's post was gone. Not just deleted, scrubbed. Like he knew the narrative had slipped through his fingers for good. That weekend, he didn't try charm or rage or bargaining. He simply shut down. Stayed in his room, curtains drawn, food delivered to the door. The silence was almost peaceful. But I knew better. This wasn't surrender. It was the calm before the last desperate burst of chaos, and I was ready. The week after Ethan's meltdown felt like walking through the ruins of a city that used to stand tall. Quiet hallways, shut doors, the faint sound of him on the phone, whispering complaints to anyone who'd still listen. By Monday, he tried one last weapon. Pity. I came home from work and froze in the doorway. My parents were sitting on the couch. My parents, 3 hours away, now in my living room, clasping mugs of coffee while Ethan dabbed delicately at his eyes. Juliet, my mom said gently. Ethan called us. He's worried about you. Said you've been distant? Shutting him out. My jaw clenched, of course. I sat down across from them, my voice calm but firm. Let me be clear. Ethan told me he wasn't in love with me. He said he never was. I accepted that and adjusted. I treat him as what he asked me to be, a roommate, that's all. My father's face hardened instantly. He turned to Ethan. You said that? Ethan squirmed. Not like that. You told her you don't love her and you're upset she won't act like she does. My dad cut in. His tone was sharp enough to slice the room in half. Even my mom, who usually took the soft side, leaned forward. Ethan, sweetheart, if you're not in love with her, why are you still here? For once, Ethan had no answer. The days that followed were a blur of his desperation, each more pathetic than the last. Tuesday, love bombing. He cooked elaborate meals, bought my favorite wine, even wore that cologne I once said drove me crazy. I thanked him politely, then paid my half of the grocery bill. Wednesday, rage. He screamed, called me manipulative, cruel, abusive. I recorded every word, my expression calm as stone. Thursday, bargaining. He begged for therapy, suggested we start fresh. I refused again, quietly but firmly. I don't need therapy to know I deserve someone who actually loves me. Friday, collapse. He stayed in his room, curtains drawn, sulking in silence. Chloe came by with red-rimmed eyes, giving me a dirty look before retreating into his room. When she left, I asked her one question. Would you still love someone who told you they didn't love you? She had no answer. By Saturday, I thought he might finally fade away quietly, but instead he delivered what I can only call the extinction burst. The desperate thrashing of someone who knows they've already lost. He posted online again, this time playing the victim in spectacular fashion. He claimed I'd controlled him financially, cut him off from his friends, manipulated him into dependency. Screenshots of Venmo requests littered the post, cropped carefully to make him look like the one being wronged. But the internet has a short fuse for lies. Within hours, mutual friends were tagging me, asking what was going on. I didn't fight fire with fire. I simply sent the full receipts. Every expense I'd covered, every text, every word of his confession. This time, I included recordings, too, legal in our state, of him screaming and accusing me of cruelty after admitting he didn't love me. The group chat went silent, then Derek again, cutting through the noise. So, he basically told you he didn't love you, expected you to keep acting like his girlfriend, and now he's mad you won't. That's wild. By evening, Ethan's post vanished. Not just deleted, scrubbed clean. Sunday morning, the apartment was buzzing with activity. Boxes stacked by the door, tape ripping, the scrape of furniture against the floor. He was leaving finally. I stayed in my room, listening to the shuffle of his belongings disappearing piece by piece. Each slam of the door was a nail in the coffin of what we'd once had. Then, just as I thought it was over, he knocked softly on my door. Juliet, his voice cracked. Can we talk? I opened the door a few inches. He stood there pale, holding nothing but his car keys. It was a test, he admitted. His eyes were hollow, desperate. I read some article that said, relationships need brutal honesty. I thought if I told you I wasn't in love, you'd fight for me. Be more romantic. Prove you cared. I stared at him, the words cold and heavy in the air. You thought telling me you didn't love me would make me fight harder? I asked quietly. No, Ethan. It made me realize I deserve someone who never needs to test me at all. He flinched as though I'd struck him. I didn't think you'd actually stop loving me, he whispered. I shook my head slowly. I didn't stop loving you. I stopped showing it to someone who told me they didn't want it. He swallowed, eyes glistening. Is there any chance for us? No, I said firmly. Not now, not ever. For once, he didn't argue. He just nodded, turned, and walked away. As his car pulled out of the lot, silence flooded the apartment. But this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was freedom. I stood in the doorway of my office-turned-bedroom. Sunlight spilling across fresh white walls. The air felt lighter already. I picked up a paint roller and dipped it into a pale blue. My color, my choice, the first of many. In my head, I heard my own voice, calm and certain. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fury or fire. Sometimes it's taking someone at their word and letting them live with the consequences. That night, I signed up for a woodworking class I'd always wanted to take. Ethan had called it a waste of money once. I smiled as the confirmation email pinged in my inbox. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was starting over. And I knew with a clarity I'd never felt before that this ending was also the beginning of the life I finally deserved.